Hello, everyone. I am Amy Mahali. Welcome to Be Well Clinic, and we are here with Jen Donovan with Whole Body Healing with Jen. Hello, Jen. I'm so excited to have you here. We are
I'm
going to
really
be
excited for this. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yes. So we are going to be talking about different things, but the main focus is going to be what the body is needing for getting out of fight or flight or sympathetic dominance and how that affects healing. Because if we are stuck in sympathetic dominance, we can't heal as well, or at least that's what Jen is going to teach us about today. So I'm really excited to have you here, Jen. I'm excited for all the things that I love listening to every time we talk, whether you're teaching or we're having a conversation. Just I learned so much. So I'm excited for you to teach us about helping our bodies have that next step of healing so that we can actually heal better and all the things that we're doing actually be working because of the balance of our bodies. So at the beginning, I'd love to just have you introduce yourself, tell us a little story, and I'm sure you'll weave that through as things go. But yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much again, Amy. I just love having our conversations too. I feel like we could probably just talk for hours. We have to like rein ourselves in whenever we're doing things like
So
this.
true.
Yeah, so this is great.
So true.
So yeah, I'm Jen Donovan, Whole Body Healing with Jen, and I came into this world like most of us through my own health crisis and healing story. I was definitely one of those kids that was like a GAPS kid, right? So I had to be on antibiotics for like a month when I was 3 for an ear infection that wouldn't go away. I had a rash all over my body when I was a baby. I had all these different food allergies. Like I refused breast milk after a few months and wanted to drink from a bottle. So clearly, like I was having a reaction to something my mom was eating. Definitely had system issues from a young age. But I thought I was healthy, right? Like as a kid and a teenager and a young adult, just because of how things are normalized, right? Like skin issues, food allergies,
And
you
our
know.
and our bodies compensate so well, so we don't have that like you can still soldier on, even if things aren't actually that well, but you keep getting up and working and schooling, and it's just amazing. Yeah, what's normal, and then also our bodies compensate.
I so agree. Thank you for saying that. I mean, it's just I'm astounded all the time with my own story and talking to clients every day, like how resilient we can be for so long. People will start saying all the stressors that their bodies have had since they were little, and a lot of times their health didn't crash until much later. And so it just goes to show like our bodies can take a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Mine certainly did.
yeah.
Certainly did. So, I mean, it wasn't until I was more in my mid 20s and it was just a combination of, I think, a lot of stress. I was in graduate school, getting my master's degree, so I had a lot of stress, a lot of pressure from that. And I had a series of taking probably about 10 doses of antibiotics in the course of a year, I would say. And I had been taking antibiotics my whole life. Like I would guess I probably had 40, 50 runs of antibiotics in my life would be my estimate. But there was like a period in my mid 20s where I took a lot in a really short period of time. And that just really crashed my immune system. I ended up getting a really bad bout of shingles at 25. And I remember my doctor being like, this is super weird. 25-year-olds don't get shingles.
Yeah.
But there I was. And it was after that mast cell activation, dysautonomia symptoms, chronic fatigue really hit me hard. It was very, very quick where just my whole system crashed, and pretty soon I was non-functional, like I was barely making it to work. I was pretty much spending most of my time being afraid I was going to have a random allergic reaction to the food I was eating or struggling to get out of bed and having pretty wild, intense panic and anxiety attacks pretty much every day. And so it was at a really serious point, and doctors just really couldn't do a lot for me. They were just giving me different cocktails of mast cell stabilizers and antihistamines, and they would do this thing where they would work for like a month, and I would be like, "Oh, okay, I'm fine now." Like I really wanted to believe that that was
Yeah.
the way. I wanted to just like go back to my life the way it had been. Um, but then they would stop working. And now I know it's because the underlying disease process was not actually being addressed, right? The underlying reasons I was sick was not being addressed. So finally, I just kind of like surrendered and said, okay, I guess I have to go at this alone. The people in the medical field are not going to help me. So that's when I started exploring holistic and natural medicine, which I had always, I mean, I grew up in kind of a hippie town. So, like, I mean, that was always a little bit in my awareness, but I had never really delved into it very much. And honestly, I was always a little cynical about it because it was like so popular, it was like kind of this woo thing, like, oh yeah, people are into that. But then I have a very sciencey mind. My dad's a scientist. I'm getting my master's degree in a scientific field, and I finally uh, gave it a chance and like actually started looking into it and realizing like, oh, this is all actually based on science. It's just science that's been suppressed or not investigated thoroughly.
Right.
And so that just like opened up this whole world to me of understanding the gut microbiome, understanding the nervous system, understanding the effects of toxicity on our bodies, and just like these endless rabbit holes. So I did recover, use the GAPS diet as a part of my recovery. And yeah, by the time I was 29, I was pretty much fully in remission. And so that was, 6 years ago now. And my health has just continued to get better since then, honestly. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I forgot to say we mostly have met each other because we're both GAPS practitioners. So we both have done that. And then you have other schooling background you've alluded to, but yeah, do you want to say
Yeah.
what your degree is in?
Yeah, so my master's is in family therapy, actually. So my initial career was to be a family therapist, and that field is still very near and dear to my heart. I appreciate a lot about that field, but I also became very disillusioned with it over time. It was kind of interesting that right around the same time that my health crashed, I had graduated and I was starting my clinical practice working in community mental health. And I realized that I wasn't helping people the way I wanted to. Like that became very clear to me very quickly. It's like, okay, we're just kind of doing the topic of the week every week and we're not really getting at the root of what's going on. So this kind of concept of like root cause healing was really being emphasized to me in my own personal life, but then also in my professional life, where I was like, okay, but how do we get to the root of what's going on with people? Like I just refuse to believe that some people were just born mentally ill. Like it just didn't make sense to me. So I was just like always digging, like what is actually going on here?
Right. Or that depression is a deficiency of Seroquel. That someone said
Yeah,
that to me one day, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
such a good perspective of no, it's not a deficiency of Seroquel. It's something else going on in the body. So it's why
such a
I'm
good
so excited for you to come talk to us about this because I do know that background. And it's
yeah.
very interesting that both of us crashed because I also crashed right after grad school. So validation for anyone in grad school right now, it is hard. But
And
also,
I see that in my clients a lot too. It's like, oh yeah, because I always ask, like, what was happening the year before you got sick? And so often it's like, oh, I started this new terrible job, or like I was in grad school, or something like that. Often, yeah,
not the only stressful thing in life, but it is a stressful thing. It's a
yeah,
lot of work to do grad school. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So then, yeah, I went back to school because once I had my own recovery journey, I was like, okay, well, I can't I can't just go back to what I was doing. I know too much now, right? Um, and I noticed that my mental health, because part of the reason I got into that field is because I had always struggled with my mental health. I was always a really anxious kid. I was never diagnosed with OCD, but always had these kind of like obsessive tendencies, right? Like I could see that pattern in myself. And I mentioned before, like I started having like really bad panic attacks and like derealization and like all these really intense mental health symptoms when my physical health crashed. And I had, always managed my symptoms through mental health techniques, right? Like using different therapy techniques on myself and going to therapy myself. And so it did help. Like I was functional. I like managed my mental health symptoms that way for the most part. But I couldn't believe that when I started doing all my nutritional interventions, like along the lines of starting to transition to the GAPS diet and things like that, the first symptoms that resolved for me before any of my like immune or nervous system issues went away was my mental health symptoms that went away first. And I
Yeah.
was like, Oh, I didn't know I could feel such low generalized anxiety. Like I didn't know that it was possible to feel this way. Like I never had before. And that's when it kind of clicked for me like, oh my gosh, this is a piece that's missing for so many people with mental health issues. They're doing all the therapy things, but their brain isn't nourished.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very faithfully managing. And actually, that's a theme that I keep hearing of. And I can relate even when you were saying back, you were just afraid all the time that you were going to get a food reaction, an allergy reaction, and how much that rules your life. And I had something similar with blood sugar. I would panic if I realized I left the house without a granola bar or something because blood sugar dropping would lead to a migraine for me. And so just like how much of you learned how to handle your own symptoms even before you went to the whole journey of healing, you were the one having to take responsibility for, okay, how many questions do I have to ask at the restaurant to make sure this food is okay? The awkward conversations you have with your friends because you need to make sure that they didn't put something in their dinner. Do you even go over to their house, right? And just how much of a weight of burden that is. And then that keeps going, right? And again, the body compensates. But it's so much work. You were compensating with doing all the exercises and they were working because they work. But we weary. We only have so much willpower, so much energy to keep compensating, and eventually we just can't keep up. And to me, that's such a big difference I wanted to pull out of the difference between compensating and being okay and healing and not having to use all those compensatory things, and what a different world you live in when that is happening.
Exactly, exactly. And it actually makes those tools more effective.
Yeah.
You know? So
Well,
that's why I kind of ended up.
yeah, talk a little more about that. Like when you had to use those tools, why it was what, why did you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, so for example, even breath work and meditation, like you always hear that these are like such powerful tools for your mental health, and they are, but I actually always really struggled doing those things. Like I would actually get significantly more anxious when I would sit down to meditate, or if I tried to focus on my breath, like it would make me feel panicky. And I, had chalked that up to like PTSD and generalized anxiety disorder and all this kind of stuff, which of course, like that did contribute to that, absolutely. But when I shifted my diet and started shifting my gut microbiome and started renourishing myself, it wasn't so hard to get over that hump, right? Like meditation was still hard at first, but it was like my brain inflammation was so much lower that it was like, okay, but I can like manage this discomfort and push through it and then start to get the benefits of a meditation practice. It doesn't feel so anxiety inducing to focus on my breath anymore because my brain and my nervous system are more nourished and it just doesn't feel as scary anymore. And so I can actually work with my breath more. So it's like those tools now work.
That's so great. And I actually hear that a lot where people go, "Oh, I tried to meditate and it made it worse. I tried to breathe and it makes me anxious." So that is so cool to hear. Yeah.
So I tried to find this like new career that I like made for myself, where I knew the nutrition had to be a piece. So I got my nutritional therapy practitioner certification and then my GAPS practitioner certification. And then I also really wanted to bring in nervous system regulation, like more somatic nervous system regulation as well. So I also got my tension and trauma release exercise provider certification. And so it's kind of the marriage of those modalities that I use primarily in my coaching practice now.
That's so cool. Yay! I love that. I love all your background, and I've loved what you've brought to the GAPS world too. We've discussed this, and I think a lot of people are also so grateful of having you have so much rich background to bring in this somatic and spoiler alert, because we're going to talk about it, breath work or other ways to just calm your nervous system. Because why? Because how is our body affected when we are in fight or flight or sympathetic dominance? Yeah, what is happening in our body? If you don't mind talking about that for a bit.
Absolutely. So the nervous system evolved in a context in which a threat was almost always going to be life-threatening, right?
Back in the day, back in the olden days.
Yep, our ancestral heritage, right? So if you think about more of this kind of tribal context, which is our ancestral life, it would be there's a drought and like we're in a famine now. There's a tiger hunting us on the outskirts of the village, right? There's an enemy tribe right over the next hill that may be attacking us anytime, you know. These are the kind of threats that we're dealing with. It's not, I have a deadline at work, my husband's mad at me, my mom's always been mean to me since I was a kid, I'm stuck in traffic, like a, hour traffic commute every day. I don't like myself, right? Like these kinds of issues are totally modern issues. And our nervous system doesn't know the difference between those kinds of issues and like there's a tiger prowling around the outskirt of the village. So our nervous system is doing wonderful things, trying to protect us. And so when we have this stress response, right, when we feel a activation from a potential threat, we get a surge of adrenaline and then cortisol. And when there is cortisol in the body, which is like basically when the nervous system confirms a threat, right, perceives that there is a true threat in our environment.
Yeah, adrenaline's just kind of alertness or
Alert. Exactly. Yeah. So first adrenaline, and that's kind of that like look, like startle feeling that we get. And then cortisol is like your brain has decided, yep, this is a true threat that we need to react to. And so we start producing cortisol. And if there is cortisol floating around in your bloodstream, your body literally turns off healing and detoxifying mechanisms in your body.
it's
And
not
it
cool.
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not important. There's a tiger prowling around your village. We don't need to detox. We don't need to repair tissue. We need to be ready whenever you need to run away from that tiger. And so we treat that like deadline at work or that expectation we've set for ourselves, the same way. And so I see people all the time coming to this healing world and they want to know, what is the right supplement? What is the right detox protocol? What is the right diet? What are the nutrients they're missing? That is all super important, like we started out with. But the prerequisite is, are we going to shift your nervous system state at the same time? Because it's this feedback loop, right? Like, yes, it is hard to regulate your nervous system if you are completely nutrient deprived, just like I had a hard time with the breath work until I got my diet right. But at the same time, it's not like that was the cure all, right? When I changed my diet, yes, it gave me this lowered inflammation where, okay, now I can approach some of these tools a little bit easier because my brain is not so inflamed. But if I had stopped there, I would not have fully recovered. Like I 100% believe that. It was only because I took that decreased inflammation in the brain and then I really took the opportunity to work so hard on regulating my nervous system that then that fed back into my body actually being able to detox and heal at a deeper level.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so profound. And I love how clearly you stated all of that of just, yeah, this is our body's not broken. That's the thing that I come back to over and over as I learn this of our body's not broken. It's doing in autoimmune reactions, in cleansing things, even in an allergy response. Like our body's doing something to protect us. But the problem is our society that we're living in, or the state of emphasis we've given things. Of yeah, do we need like the fact that body image issues are an issue is making people feel in that stress state when that was not really what would have happened 200 years ago or however long. But then also that the tigers never go away, right? We see them, we
Yes.
perceive it life threatening, and for a lot of people, we don't naturally go out of that fight or flight. And hopefully, I think you're going to talk to us about ways to help your body feel safe and come out of the fight or flight. So that'll be really great to get to eventually. But just that idea of it makes sense what our body's doing. Our body's doing the right thing. It's more
And
just
I just,
what we live in.
yeah, yeah. And I want to add on that because I sometimes have people ask me like, well, what is a nervous system issue and like what is like is this a nervous system issue that I'm having or is it like a real physical issue? It's kind of like the insinuation,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And people will do this too where they'll be like, oh, my doctor thinks that I just have anxiety, right? And that's like the thing that drives me the most
Yeah.
crazy. Like, okay, that's not an explanation. Because why is your body having anxiety? But I want to emphasize that any symptom is a nervous system issue. Like any and all, because there's not a mind-body separation, right? It's not like, oh, it's either in the nervous system or it's in the body. No. If it's in the body, it's in the nervous system. And if it's in the nervous system, it's going to have an effect on your body because our nervous system decides when to create symptoms.
Mhm.
Right? And that's not a dismissal or saying that the symptom is in your head. And that's how a lot of people take it. And that's how a lot of doctors and some people will insinuate it. It's like, oh, if it's just in your head, it's not real. But no, that is literally what makes it real. Is your nervous system decides there's a threat, and so it creates a symptom in response.
Yes. Yes, that's such a cool. I've heard of it in other things, but I love that. Just so simple. It is like everything comes from the nervous system. The input comes in, and then our body decides what to do with it, and then the body responds. So
Yeah,
when the brain decides what to do with it, or nervous system decides what to do with it, and then the body responds. So
exactly. Exactly.
that's a cool way to look at that. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on also is hopefully people who are watching and are wanting to be drawn to this video are people who are feeling really frustrated where they're at. Like, why am I doing all the good things that I'm not healing? Maybe feeling guilty, like I should be healing because I must be doing it wrong. And I went through
Mm,
that phase too of when I started learning about nervous system and my own like heightened sympathetic dominance that I can very easily still get into, is I was like, oh, I even know what I should do now. I know I should do breath work, or I know I should do, meditation or emotional processing or whatever it is. And so then it became my fault again, right? I'm the one who's again not healing because now I'm in the way. And it's been a really good journey, one, to just accept I'm doing the best I can with the symptoms I have, and healing is slow. And my physical symptoms, my gut symptoms, I'll go there. My gut symptoms, my headaches and things like that. Um, I had both. I had some heal quicker, like you were saying. I had some just desire to live that was deeper. My depressive state got higher, whereas your anxiety state got lower, right? And that happened really immediately. But just kind of my body healed and started nourishing, and then this like last little bit of easily being in fight or flight can be that tricky place, and it still is a little bit for me too, of how do I get that last little bit of healing that's not the desperate healing of I'm so hungry my body figures out how to eat, to I want to get to that last goal. People have that last weight goal or that last brain function goal or that last, I'm trying to think what else comes in, just that last healing that just seems to not get through,
yeah.
not take the pressure on themselves that they're now failing, but that there's tools and that their body is doing the best it can.
Yeah, and I really like that you're bringing this up because this is another issue that I see, especially with all these different nervous system regulation and brain retraining programs that are out there now. And they're great. I mean, these programs are very, very valuable. They're helping a lot of people, but the problem is that inevitably when you have like a course or a protocol, like now you have something else to study, right? And now you have more things to put on your little checklist.
Right.
And that's the problem of like what happens is that people who develop these complex chronic illnesses generally have certain personality types, right? And there's many,
Variety. Yeah.
I mean it doesn't discriminate completely, but there are tendencies we can see, right?
Yes.
And one of them is like what I would call kind of uh, the victimizer, right? Like self-victimizing personality type, where it's kind of like a little bit what you're saying of like I can't do anything right, nothing ever works for me, like it's always my fault. I can't stick to anything, right? So having these like checklists set that person up for more of that because inevitably they're not going to do all the things on the checklist because they already have this story that like I'm not capable of sticking to anything or doing anything right. So that is like exacerbating the underlying issue. And then we have the opposite end of the spectrum, which is also the most common one, which is that like type A, hyper organized
Yeah.
perfectionist personality type. And those people love a checklist,
Right. Right.
right? And that's definitely the one I identify with more, right? Where it's like, oh no, I'll do it. And I'll do it every single day, no matter what, like exactly how you told me to do it. Um, but the problem is that they're not actually changing their underlying nervous system patterns by having another checklist that they get to, check off. So the problem with both of those is like there's a pattern in your nervous system that is dysregulating in either one direction or another. And you are taking your nervous system regulation practice and you are putting it on top of the exact same pattern that you're already in. And so you're not actually regulating your nervous system, you're repeating the dysregulation pattern, just using different practices. Does that make sense?
Does. Yeah, that's a really, really good thing to point out. Yeah, it does make sense.
So we can definitely talk about like particular practices that can be helpful because there are absolutely practices that can be really helpful in regulating. But I always like to caveat it with it's less about exactly what you're doing and it's more about how you're doing it. Because again, I think people are overwhelmed. There's so many different like nervous system regulation protocols out there now. Like everyone and their mom is like a somatic coach now, which again is great. I love that this is coming into the popularity that it is. It's so, so valuable. But then again, you get this information saturation where people either get paralyzed and don't do anything because there's so many options out there and they don't know what to do, or they're buying a different course every single month and being like, nothing's working. I keep
Hope
doing all
that
these
one
things,
works.
nothing's working.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that comes to mind with all of that is, yeah, going through the checklist of, oh, I took 5 breaths with a long exhale. Like, okay, it probably helps a little bit, but it's not the same as actually letting your body feel what it's supposed to be feeling with taking 5 breaths. So I think all of these things, tell me your opinion, but I think all the things will help some. Like grounding is going to help. If you're on the bare ground, you're going to have some benefit than if you weren't. But if you can make it more effective or more helpful to your body, yeah, with the patterns. One thing before going to those, I also was curious. I tend to have a more population that has experienced some trauma and sometimes some significant trauma. And so just that idea of like, what if your body does it without your permission, right? Like a PTSD kind of trigger or having an intense protocol. I think it's also important to talk about if you do an emotional work visit, you're going to be tired afterwards because you brought up patterns and you're trying to reformulate and all that. So, just maybe speaking a little bit to the validity of that from your opinion of like what and how you kind of deal with PTSD triggers or the like of that when the body itself is just deciding to be afraid, even if you've kind of regulated your life a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a big issue because someone is like a nervous system health coach or a somatic coach doesn't necessarily mean they're trauma informed, and I think that's really important. Um, and in fact, I've been to so many classes where, maybe a yoga class where you know, they're having people do sometimes these very vulnerable poses like right away in a beginner introductory class or like a breathwork class where they're doing like pretty intense pranayama type practices where they're doing these like very active breathwork routines that like someone with PTSD is going to have a panic
Open.
attack.
Yeah, it opens
Um,
it way too deep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
And
no
there's
question.
no education. Like I never knew that until, some experience and learning about what that is of no, it's not talked about in our society of, when you start healing emotions, just we know this with food, right? You start a probiotic, you might get some loose stools and that one people might know, or you start a new food or you do keto for the first time and you get the keto flu, right? But the same kind of thing happens when you start doing emotions or if you go into a new place emotionally and it's just not talked about. So people are like, oh, this is supposed to help me release all of my tension and release all of my trauma. And it's like, do you know what that is going to do? Like, do it. It's good, but be aware of the process and how to walk through that almost safely, I think is a way to say it. So,
So pacing is huge, right? That's kind of what you were just getting at is like, okay, yeah, we do need to open these things up and like release these emotions and release these patterns. That's absolutely part of the healing process, but like at what pace are you doing it? A lot of people want to rush through this and it's like, let's just get all our trauma out, and even when, because I do the trauma release exercise, and a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go and do this thing, and like all my trauma is gonna be released in this big cathartic, experience, and then I'll be fine. It's like, actually, we don't necessarily want to have like a cathartic moment when we're trying to heal trauma, at least in the beginning, because that can actually be more dysregulating. So pacing is huge, and working with someone who can help you pace yourself is really important. And then we also, I run a program called Immune Resilience. It's a coaching program, and we always start people out with mindfulness. Because mindfulness is, and I know it's like such a buzz fad word that can mean a million different things, but the way we mean it is uh, bringing your awareness into the present moment with intention, right? So it's really about changing the way that you're paying attention and doing different mental exercises to help with that. And if you think about that, that is kind of like, by definition, the antidote to PTSD is
Mm,
that you are learning to pay attention in a particular way to the present moment. Because
yeah.
PTSD is, again, by definition, a part of your brain stuck in a loop from something that happened in the past,
Mhm.
right? And so if you're continually retraining your brain to be in the present in a particular way, right, with kind of more of an open focus or open awareness, that starts to shift those brain patterns that are stuck in trauma. And it's simple, but it's actually an advanced practice, really. Like it takes time to really cultivate it. So we help people with exercises to help bring them into the present moment and to help pay attention to their body responses and body reactions with a more open and soft and neutral perspective. And they can take that and then they can apply that to all the other practices that then we teach them, because that is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of, it's not just a practice, it's how you do it. So are you doing the practice in a mindful way, or are you going through the motions, or are you rushing through it?
Right. And by that, I'm thinking you're meaning, oh, if this feels intense, slow down. If you feel, you don't have to be at the exact, yoga position. You could be halfway there. And if that's as far as your body wants, that idea of listening to the body, which is a GAPS principle, that's definitely where I heard it from, but I talk about it all the time. Number one, listen to the body. And sometimes we need to practice being able to listen to the body. And that mindfulness that you're talking about is, yeah, a great way to just learn understand what people are practicing too, because some people
Yeah.
find just intuitively like, oh yeah, no, my body is in line with that, or that resonates with me, or whatever. And some people are like, I don't know, tell me what to do. Like, we're going to learn how to listen to your body, because that's what's going to help it be safe all the time of what pacing to do, in terms of these practices.
Yes, it's the foundation of building safety in the body, because it does allow you to pay attention to these signals in a way that usually is more comfortable. Because very often, when we don't know what's happening in our body, it's because we've disconnected from it because it's felt too intense or overwhelming. So some of these mindfulness skills actually help us be able to come back into communication with the body in a way that feels safe, because we're able to have, again, that more expanded presence, right? Where we're not in this like narrow, fixated mindset, around like, oh my gosh, this particular symptom is uncomfortable, or this reminds me of this thing. We're able to um, experience all the different sensations that are happening in our body, as well as whatever is going on in our environment, and like hold that all softly in a more expanded way. It's really a whole perspective shift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. And it also reminds me a little bit about boundaries. Like that's kind of what I'm is a word that can fit here too. And I don't know where I learned that self boundaries is part of it. So your body's giving feedback of this is too much. We need to stop. Don't stretch so far. Don't breathe so deep or at this pace. And when we ignore our boundaries, trouble ensues. So that just made me think of, oh, that's boundaries. Sometimes we need to have boundaries for outside people, but we also need to respect the boundaries our body is giving us or that we're giving ourselves. And that is safety. So when you said like that's the beginning of safety, I was like, oh, beginning of safety, boundaries is one. Even with primitive reflexes or primary reflexes, hand supporting, which is when babies push themselves off the ground, is the reflex that we develop our personal bubble. And if that does not develop strongly in people, they actually will be a target of bullying Like we have that frequency or the sign above our head or all those things people will describe. Like, do I have a sign above my head that says bully me? In the store, people come up and just yell at them. Why does that happen to some people and not to other people? Oftentimes, it's actually that you're missing the reflex nervous system of hand supporting. And that's telling you boundaries. But those people often, I find, are also do not have strong boundaries with themselves. They say they're going to have a rest day and then they say yes to someone and go over and babysit their kids or whatever. So I never pulled it into even the pacing of how you go through things, how fast you drink meat stock, how fast you do
Mhm.
probiotics, what kind of emotional work, saying to a practitioner, hey, this is as far as I can go today. Maybe in a somatic workshop where you're the one recognizing I need that boundary that's a good thing to be growing. And it is the foundation of safety. So, oh, that was a cool connection for my brain.
That's so fascinating. I love that about the
Yeah,
reflex you were sharing. That's
transporting.
so fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, we look at patterns like movement patterns like that a lot too. We don't do the primal reflexes. I love that modality. I think it's fascinating. But with the trauma release exercise, a lot of times what you'll find, and I guess maybe I'll just share a little bit about what it is. It's a method of stimulating a tremoring um, or shaking response in the fascia. So we use a few simple exercises to stimulate this, what's called a neurogenic tremor. So it's coming from the brainstem and it moves into places in the fascia where you're holding tension patterns and it starts to use the vibration to release those patterns. So you're not actually intentionally shaking, your body is just kind of doing it for you. It's really beautiful and powerful. Um, but very often when we're doing that practice with people, they will have um, almost like reflex like movements that start to happen, right? Where like a shoulder will move or their head will want to tilt to the side, or they'll like their chest will kind of pull up. Or their hands will start like twisting or like kind of flexing. And a lot of times these movements are reflective of a place where they had a traumatic experience, right? Like some kind of movement maybe they made at that time, when they had a traumatic experience that never fully resolved. Now, we don't have to make that connection, right? It's really beautiful that like you don't have to know what that movement is connected to. Sometimes people have an idea, but a lot of the times they don't. But it doesn't matter. It's just like that
Yeah.
issue is resolving
Right.
itself.
The body's doing it. I love
Yeah.
that. I love so much when we don't have to know everything. We can just let
Yeah.
the body do what it's doing, what it's designed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
So I
yeah.
guess that's the second
Yeah.
part of nervous system regulation that I would say. Like, I really wanted to emphasize like the way we do it because it's just as important, if not more, as what we're doing. But then when you are ready to move into deeper nervous system regulation, this is one of the primary modalities that I use because a lot of times we were talking about that cortisol buildup earlier, right? Like, oh, your body is under threat. That threat's not going away. Cortisol just keeps building in your body. Um, and that causes this huge amount of potential energy to build up in the body, right? Where the muscles are like tensing, like ready to like spring load you forward, basically, is what it's trying to do. And if that energy just stays in our body, it's going to cause us to become either sympathetic or parasympathetic dominant, meaning like stuck in fight or flight, or eventually like going into a freeze state, right? It's going to cause these chronic dysregulated states. And so to come out of that, a lot of times what has to happen is we have to have an energetic discharge. And that's exactly what you were talking about when you're saying when you're uncovering these emotional patterns, like things are going to happen, right? Like, and that's the energy releasing, it's the energy of those experiences trying to discharge out of the body. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable. But what I love about the TRE, the trauma release exercise, is that it provides this safe structure in which to have those discharging experiences.
Yeah. Well, even what you were describing about the movements or the reflexive movements, if someone just did that on their own and didn't know, that could be really scary. They could think that they're more broken, but to have like the understanding, oh, this is what's normal, this can happen, here's what's happening, can even allow people, to let their body do those movements. I've talked to people, especially dancing. I ask people, when you work out or when you dance, like, do you often cry? And because that movement just starts releasing stuff from the body, and it's not so structured as what the TRE is, which is very cool. But people who have a lot, they are understanding, and I'm like, oh, I'll give you permission to cry, like you're releasing, let that happen. So there's lots of ways we can kind of do it on our own, like dancing. I have heard that hips, well, from the Body Keeps the Score book, that hips are really big deal to even do like salsa dancing and Latin dancing to get the hips going, and then to have this guided thing, but also not to be freaked out if, oh, I was doing my hips and I ended up on the puddle on the floor, shaking, crying and shaking, to know that that's a release instead of a scary thing, I think is also really valuable to know. And then the
I
extra
mean, think
guided.
about, yeah, I mean, think about how many conditions we define as pathological or dysfunctional that could be energy trying to release, but you're not letting it so it's stuck in a loop.
Yep.
I mean, how many neurological conditions involve tremoring, right? Trembling or tremoring, or how many people feel like they have the sensation of vibration stuck in their body, you know? Like different kinds of jerking or spasming symptoms that are involved in a lot of conditions. I mean, even panic attacks, even seizures, right? Like it's all connected.
Would you put ticks in that category?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool perspective. Yeah, and yeah, we've labeled those as the wrong thing instead of the healing thing.
And so people like try to hold it in more, right? Where I will have people who have like trembling as a symptom and they'll like try to hide it, you know? And it's like, it's gonna just get stronger and stronger because your body's trying to let something go.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant discussion. Well, before we go too long, are there other kind of techniques or things that are easy to do at home or to get started, or other things you want to share kind of about how to help get going with
Yeah,
that?
I love different vagal toning exercises as well. So humming or singing are things that I often will have my clients do. Anything that vibrates the vagus nerve, right? So you can even like tap your on your breastbone, just to create vibration. You can like gargle, or you can hum, or you can chant, right? I mean, it's not a coincidence that like every religious tradition around the world has some kind of like singing, chanting intoning type of practice, it like regulates our nervous system. So that's super powerful. And then facial expression, like loosening up the muscles in our face, is actually really important for nervous system regulation because the more dynamic and connective the muscles in our face are, the more our nervous system is going to interpret safety. Right? Like if our face is really tense, that's the nervous system is going to think that there's a threat.
Right.
Yeah, or like, kind of frozen, like the muscles are really loose too. Like you'll see people with more like droopy eyes or like not much facial expression, and that's also like a signal to the nervous system that you're trying not to be noticed, right? So there's probably a threat nearby. And so learning how to make like big expressive facial expressions, I will like tell my clients like go make faces at yourself in the mirror, like try to make like silly cartoon or like emoji faces. You're going to feel ridiculous, but you're going to go out into the world that day and people are going to be more connected to you. Like you're going to have better social interactions that day because you did that.
Probably why people love talking to babies, because that's the one place where we make the
Exactly.
biggest facial expressions. Bigger than
Totally.
you ever thought you could even make, right? That's cool. So kind of, I think what you're saying is that the body can tell the nervous system that it's safe. So having like the feedback goes kind of both ways. Is that what you're saying in that?
Totally. And it's so important to do both, I think, because like some of the mindfulness techniques I was talking about earlier, like those can be a little more cognitive, right? Top down of like trying to change the way you're perceiving things or thinking about things. But then you can, yeah, change how your body is expressing itself, change your facial expression, and that'll send a signal the other way. Yeah.
It's cool. It's really cool. Is there any beginning breath, even just like starting to practice breath at home, that you have found to be a good starter?
Yeah, I actually don't do a lot of fancy breathwork techniques with my clients, again, just because I don't think it's very trauma informed. And a lot of times, like I said, breathwork classes will tend to do these like very intense activating styles of breath work that really are much more advanced practices that should be brought in later. And so what I focus on with my clients is really just more diaphragmatic breathing, right? And that's actually learning how to engage your diaphragm properly so that you can get a full inhale and you can get a full exhale. And so this also involves being aware of your posture, right? And making sure that you have enough core and back strength to like hold your posture correctly. So, I mean, there's a lot of these little pieces that go into even preparing yourself to do breath work. Like, do you know how to engage your rhomboids, like the two muscles on the sides of your upper spine? Like, that is required to like hold your body in the right position so that you can take a full breath. And a lot of people with POTS and dysautonomia have very weak rhomboids. And that's part of the problem is that they're always in this collapsed position. They're not breathing correctly. And over time, your nervous system will get chronically dysregulated. Some people grow up with these dysfunctional movement patterns. They've like never actually known what it's like to breathe correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen tall people, like people who didn't want to be as tall as they were, they make themselves shorter by inches, and then that's, from a middle school age on, and they've literally lived in this hunch position because they didn't want to be tall as they were. So, yeah, there's lots of reasons why we can be in that poor position for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other trying to think of other categories. You know them better than me. That's kind of a good beginning or a place to start. Or you have a YouTube channel, so I was gonna say any YouTuber like places that are good for learning to get started or people to connect with maybe in the area where they are or
Yeah,
um,
yeah. So I have a whole nervous system playlist on my YouTube channel that has a lot of good stuff on it. I also do a drop-in um, TRE group by donation every month. So I do it in person at the yoga studio by my house in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So if you are nearby there, definitely come in person. But I also stream it online for people to be able to tune in at any from anywhere. So that's the first Saturday of every month, and that is linked on my website to do that if you just want to dip your toes into the TRE. And then we teach all of these techniques in much more depth in our coaching program, Immune Resilience, as well. We have a whole nervous system module and brain retraining module as a part of that program.
yeah, so whole body healing with Jen, again, her YouTube and website. And you do a lot of online. You see a lot of people virtually. Um,
Yeah, pretty much always. Yeah.
that is an option if this seemed to resonate with anybody of something that would be really helpful to their body. And let's see, I'm trying to think if we covered so many things. Is there any kind of final things we want to go back to or bring up, or do we feel like it was a pretty good discussion, I feel.
Yeah, feel like it's pretty complete. I guess I would just kind of emphasize like the whole point of the nervous system work is to teach your body that it's safe to be vulnerable, right? Like that's what it really comes down to because healing is a vulnerable process. Like if our body's detoxing, if our body's healing, we need to feel like we are in a place that's safe enough to focus our resources on that task and not on immediate survival, right? And so all these nervous system practices are designed to help you feel safe being in a more vulnerable state. And so if you're not feeling that shift, there's something not clicking with your practice. Even if you're like going through the motions, again, like I said, of like, but I'm doing all the things, if you're not feeling that shift, like in your body, there's something that's missing, and that may be your missing piece.
Yeah, no, that's a really good like summary statement of that. You need to teach your body that it's safe to be vulnerable. And then that is like the goal that you're holding up and you find out, okay, do I need to do more somatic work? Do I need to practice mindfulness so that I can remind my body I'm safe now and that was before? Or some people I feel like haven't even experienced that like you're talking about. And some of it is nutrition. Maybe you don't have enough cholesterol in your body because you've not eaten animal fat. Maybe you need more B vitamins from eating organ meats because we need B vitamins, minerals, and fat for our nervous system to be just nourished. And if it's not nourished, everything is harder if you're tired and hungry. And it's easier if you're well fed and rested, right? And so that's true for your nervous system, for your adrenals, for your thyroid. And so giving the nutrition you need allows you to do the things more easily, allows you to be in a relaxed state more easily. Um, and lost my train of thought. So holding up here, need to teach your body it's safe to be vulnerable is kind of the goal. And then each person's probably going to have a different path of what foods do they need to eat and what somatic or what breath or what grounding or what processing do they need to have they ever told their trauma story. Maybe some people need to start even just telling someone else so it starts getting out. Maybe you go to salsa dancing or Zumba class at the at the local rec center, right? But to figure out what your body needs to feel safe. I do talk, and if you're not sure if you felt safe, maybe finding a way, like, where could you? Do you have your favorite blanket? You're curled up, it's warm and cozy. Can you bring to mind a time where you did feel safe and try to remember what your body felt like? Whether that's alone in your room or going camping or being away from technology for a couple of days or being in a hug by your dad or whatever it is that is the thing. And then maybe going back to that feeling as your what's the word? Your
Like
torch,
your anchor point. Yeah.
your anchor point of, oh, I'm trying to achieve that feeling in my body. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Love it. Yeah.
beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. That
This was so lovely. Yes,
was so
thank
lovely.
you. I love learning from you and yeah,
Likewise.
I feel like we
Yeah.
have so many things to share and expand on. It's
I
great.
know there's so much of like, oh, we kind of talked about that, but I feel like half of what you shared was I'd never even heard you share before. So that was really exciting. Okay, well, great. Everyone go check out Jen's stuff. And you can also subscribe to my channel and her channel. And it'd be great to have you come back for more videos on how to take care of your body. And I will see you in the next video, and Jen will see you in her channel. Bye, everybody.